Hello and welcome to the Tinkercats video gallery. Today I'm going to show you how to get from a washing tablet container like this, and of course other brands are available, to this here, a nice ink pad storage, and I shall just start to talk you through it. Now what I've done is with my washing tablet thing, I've taken the lid off and I've taken the two flaps on the side off, and this one's got my washing powder still in. It's got to go down to the kitchen in a minute. And I've used a couple of old ones where I made sure that I hadn't torn this flap off, so I got a nice straight this flap here, so I made sure that I got a nice straight line across here, which you can tease it off in a way that works. So there are other containers available for washing tablets and whatever. It's just to give you an idea what you can do with normal household items. And just to show you again whereabouts we're going to go to. Now this is what I've made to store my Stampin' Up ink pads in, and these are actually the newer style, which have been out for about 2 to 3 years now, and I always found them a bit too wet and never used them until I actually literally turned them upside down so that not all the ink was on the surface, and I'm getting much better images. They're not as blotchy, they're much sharper again, so I'm quite happy. So hence I've made myself a storage where I can store them the way I would like them to be stored, because in the normal Stampin' Up caddy, which is a fabulous piece of kit, you'd store them so that actually you store them the other way around, and you cannot turn them in this way, but I prefer to store the new ones this way, upside down, because the ink is not all on the surface and I'm getting a better image. So when I'm stamping, put me that one to one side. And so I've taken the flaps off, and so cut them all off using my craft knife, and then I measured up my sides everywhere. I measured up my bottom and for the inside as well, and then I cut myself some designer paper to cover it. And the way I covered it was I've made like two sort of little strips, but I just covered the corners on the outside, and I cut the side pieces a bit longer and just folded them over. But if you want to do, if you want to do it a different way, you can also cut yourself strips to go across here and across the top. I just wanted to keep the top on the outside in a way that it wouldn't catch, which sometimes if you use the edges you can still catch the paper a little bit. So hence I just folded them over. I found that a little bit easier for myself. And then I cut strips again for the inside down and around, put them in first, and then I just pop my sides in. What happens with these sort of more like industrial type of manufactured containers, they're not always 100% straight. So I just felt it was easier to use the strips on the corners and put my sides on, because it still gives you quite a good finish. Right, so I'm going to get my shaving brush, and I'm working with a retired colour here actually called Barger Breeze. It's just simply because I had quite a bit of designer paper left, and if you're anything like me, I like the paper so much I don't dare cutting it to it. But with this here, if you make things for yourself, you still have the pleasure of seeing it. So I'm more likely to use it rather than cutting it down to size to get little snippets on a card. You always have leftovers that you can use for that sort of thing. So this is a Barger Breeze colour, and I'm actually going to use Island Indigo to blend in my edges with just simple shaving brush. So I'm just picking up some ink from the ink pad, and it's a really quick way. So you can either go sort of straight across in long sweeps, or you can go with oh, I'm rambling now again. That's me. Well, I'm not perfect, and in some ways I don't like my I quite like my videos not to be 100% perfect, because I always feel a little bit intimidated if someone is a bit too slick and I think, oh, I'm not as good as that and I can't do this, and when of course I can. So in other words, you can do it too. So yeah, you can sort of like do it in a swoop around in circles or just in very long swiping movements, and go a bit darker on the edges. It's relatively quick to do this. So and it doesn't have to be 100% precise because you'd be stamping over it. Now what you might think, why didn't I stamp my card before? It's just because I wanted to blend the edges in, and it's easier with the way I covered it to do it when it's not, when it in the sand start again when I've got everything assembled, really. And I also sort of find it, because I tend to make my projects up as I go along, and I've made another one of these before, but I need to, so hence I thought I share it with you. I find it quite easier sort of if I almost like work my way along rather than absolutely plan my projects. I got a bit of an idea and I'm not quite sure if it works or if it doesn't, so I've just got to wing it, really, I suppose. And that's what I'm doing here. So just blending my edges in. Got a few more to do, and I'm going all around the box, and yeah, so just going all around the box. It's quite quick. And I found also another reason why I didn't do it is because if you get a bit messy with the glue and when it's already inked, it's a bit more difficult to rescue. So that was where I got stuck at. Why didn't I stamp my pieces first? Of course you can try stamping them first if you're okay with that. I just gave you my reasons why I tend to sort of not to do this, because I'm doing things mainly as I'm going along, and it's just finding a way that works for you, really. And this sort of works for me. And the stamping doesn't have to be, because it's slightly sort of like distressed and a bit rough and ready, or antique looking, whatever you want to call it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, so you can do it even if you haven't got, because when you come to stamp on the sides, they're not going to be that solid to stamp on, so your imprint won't be quite as good. But it's a bit sort of like a vintagey look and a grungy look, and it goes with it. So and it's actually quite interesting. This is a look that I've admired, but I never really dared doing, because I always thought, oh no, I can't really, I don't know how to do it, and I always felt, oh, it won't look right when I touch it and stuff. But it's okay. I quite like doing it now. It's just sometimes trying it and having the confidence to just go along with it. So right, we almost have this one done. So I'm just sort of blending the edges of my reverse, which is going to be against the wall, and I won't be stamping on it, but just to sort of get the side edges blended in better. It's easier to do it when you do all the surfaces, really. So that will sort of blend in a bit better. It starts to look a bit smoother when the ink is when the ink is dry. So all I'm going to do now is just go around the outer face here. And I'm going in and just rubbing it out, because you won't really see it, but you need this edge here to blend in, because my ink pads will be overhanging it a little bit, but that makes them a lot easier to grip. And when you come to measure anything up, if you wanted to cover your own box from cardboard, you will notice that your inner pieces of paper will be slightly smaller. That's due to the thickness of the cardstock. Of the card packaging, I mean, sorry. I knew I said something wrong there. Right, let's go. Yeah, I don't know whether you can see it that well on camera here now, but you have the edges are sort of blended in, and this is where I'm discovering that I've forgotten to put my daylight lamp on to give you hopefully a better picture. Just bear with me a moment. So I'm just going to put my ink pad to one side, and I'm just going to raise this up. So let's see. That should give you a better picture for when you're seeing, as you can see, the edges here are better, so they are blended in, so they are a little bit darker. And you can do more if you want to. The other paper I had, because I needed a bit more than 2 pieces of paper, was a little bit darker, and I didn't have the same left again, so I just went for some slightly lighter one, and but it will look fine too. So next I did put some sticky strip on, so quite sticky, for my ribbon to go on, and so I've popped that just around here, if you can see that. There you go. Press that down, and then around the other side here. And I need to do a snip it off. So next one. So I need to turn this around for myself. That's better. So I've got it on camera as well. So if I do this, doesn't have to go fully to the edge, because I'm going to cut the ribbon off as well along the edge, and because I don't want to have it going round the corner. That sort of then brings its own issues of having to make it look tidy. So I just want to end it pretty much with the side here of my box. Right, so get my ribbon out. So let's do that. So when I'm putting the ribbon on now, I'm starting off just peeling it back partially, my sticky strip, and if needs be, put some scissors on it, because it tends to be highly static. Right, so I've got my ribbon here, and I'm going to align my ribbon with pretty much the edge at the front and at the bottom, which is going to be either the top or the bottom here. And this is where I'm discovering I actually made a little mistake, but just do something different. I was going to do some stamping first, but there we go. So if you go along here, then do this here, and then back round to the front. That's that. and then just snip your ribbon off. And what I'll be doing at the very end, I'll just run a bit of glue across the edges to prevent fraying. But I'm not going to do that until I'm finished, because then I can leave it standing upright for those beads to dry. So I'm just going to do the other side now. And then I'll do the stamping after. So whatever you do, I know I called it a mistake, but essentially it isn't really a mistake. I'm just going to do something slightly different. So again, you're sort of like aligning it pretty much where you want it to go. So it's the ribbon here. All right, going around. And the reason why I basically choose these sort of boxes is because Petite ink pads fit pretty well into it. Well, into the box really. I don't have shelves in there, but they slide in and out on top of each other quite easily. As long as you got them sort of secured either side, they're not going to topple over. Right, so that's my ribbon on. And now I'm going to sort of get my Island Indigo ink again. You get whatever ink you would want to. Of course, you would have different colors potentially. And I got a splatter stamp here, which is from the Grunge Me set by Papertrey Ink. And I'm just going to randomly stamp some splatters. And as you can see, it's not stamping entirely, but it just gives a different splatter pattern then. And you don't have to be, as I said, very precise. It's actually quite nice to get slightly different effects. And we'll be going over it again with another stamp anyway, sort of that has a smaller pattern on it. This is just sort of to add more interest to your background. So that's something, if you wanted to do a slight vintage look or a grungy look, that's something you might have to think about really. So I'm only going to do the three, sort of my sides and what is going to be my top. So that goes to one side. And then next is the small splatters, which I'm going to do a couple in the Island Indigo, and then I'm going to do them in another colour, which was the rich raspberry. Right, so just a couple. That's it. That's all I want in that colour, so I'm quickly going to wipe it before going on to my next. And that's all you do, is you just very quickly just pop them wherever you feel like. You can't do too many or too few. Because you're going to pop something else over it. It will all start to come together, even if it doesn't look much to you at the beginning. So that's that. And then next we have a sort of the little grungy circles from the Grunge Me set, which I'm going to stamp in the rich raspberry too. So again, they don't have to be absolutely perfectly stamped. I'm just going to put my fingers underneath to just give a bit of back pressure there. There you go. And then I'm just going to pop some on here. that's that. And just a couple on the top. You can have them overlap as well. So that's fine for my top. I'm not too bothered about that. Doing that again, and a bit here. I'm just going to pop some on here, there, and that one, and that's all I'm going to do with this. So that's the raspberry done, and next you're going to get the indigo, island indigo out again. I'm going to pop my box to one side for a little bit, and now I'm going to show you a very quick way of colouring swirls. So I've got 4 die cut swirls here, and those die cuts I made with I cut them with the Sizzix Eclipse, but you can use any other ones, the other die cuts as well. And the way I quite quickly colored them is I just go over them to add a little bit of texture, just straight with the ink pad, pressing onto them. So you can probably see there is a little bit of texture that's coming through, and then I'm going to take my brush again and pick out one after the other, and just do quickly blend over them again. So that's one. Oops, come here. And 2. I'm going to go over them with glitter glue anyway, so these little bits they will just blend in and you won't see the lines, and it actually will slightly change the colour as well, but it gives quite a nice effect. So if you prefer not to, you could also use, rather than glitter glue, you could use glossy accents or something like that to just give the swirls a little bit more definition. But if you do them in this way, which I'm going to hold one a bit closer to the camera, it gives like a nice sort of quick, aged, distressed look to them without you having to do almost like too much work and crunching and whatever. So I hope you can see this quite well now. So you have like these little texture bits, which this is an older style Stampin' Up! Ink pad, which has got like the fabric cover to it, and when you use them directly on your paper or card, it always leaves like the woven texture type of imprint on there. So I'm going to pop all of this to one side now, and I'm getting my box back, the one that I've covered and stamped on just earlier. So, and now all I'm going to do is, now this is my top, so I'm going to assemble my swirls on here. So I tend to use some tweezers for that. Whenever I'm doing something that I'm sticking on, I tend to use tweezers to hold it in whilst I'm applying the glue, sort of something that is a bit more intricate. So I'm just going to use my sort of fine tippy type of glue to go on the back. And I want these to stick down firmly because it's probably a piece of almost like furniture really that's going to be handled quite a bit, and it does need to be relatively robust. So I have them going like this, and I just hold them, stick them down. I know some people use probably a sort of glue sheets for die cutting, which of course you can do. I just think glue is equally well, and yeah, glue sheets are good if I've got like a really big piece that I want to stick to something. But I always find with die cutting you get so much waste that I rather prefer glue, to be honest. So it's less stuff to go in the bin as well, because you don't have to waste all the backing and whatever that is on it, just for a tiny little swirl, which is easy enough to stick down by glue. So this goes down here. And it is at this point where I'm applying my glitter glue. That's before my flowers are going on. So I'm just going to show you here a sort of about where I will be having my flowers. They'll be about here, and here for the larger one. And there'll be another one probably about here, and then these two ones will go somewhere there. Yep. So I better pop it that way around because that's how I'll be seeing it. So I'll take these off. And the flowers are already, I've stamped them on some pink card using the raspberry ink. And I used the flower Shop and Petite Petals by Stampin'Up. Just make sure they're all really nicely stuck down. Sometimes they do lift up, especially if you go down like a little sort of a little step down from the ribbon onto the box here. So just quite quickly popping some glitter glue on. I mean, I could have used, instead of the Papertrey Ink, I could have used some of some other Stamplorations. They do some really nice mixed media backgrounds and some splatters. Of course, Stampin'Up has got some stuff that would be suitable for that as well. So just look through your stash and see what you've got really, and go for it, I would think. So, but I started off my first one with the Papertrey Ink one, and it's a set that I haven't used in a while, so it's quite nice sometimes to dig things out that you've had for a while and then use them again. Because if you don't do that, even as crafters, we can get stuck in a bit of a rut. And then what we do becomes quite repetitive. Right. So now again with the flowers, I used glue to stick them on. And I know roughly my layout, so what I tend to do is when I do things like that, I would have, even before sticking the swirls down, I probably would have placed all my elements in roughly the way I would want them to go on the finished project. So that goes about here, and stick that down. So if you apply a glitter glue, you can just go over it and cover it. It's a lot more difficult to apply it around your shapes later on, because it will help to even stick and secure your embellishments in place, really. So I'm just going to do one side because I need the glitter glue to be dry before I can go on and decorate the other side of my box. So let's do that here. Stick these down. And then you got the little flowers. And as you can see, is sort of what used to be a or what might have looked at the beginning like a really weird background, it comes to life when you start putting your embellishments on, and it all sort of starts to blend in, really. Nice one. And what I've done here with sort of, I worked it out on my first project, if I have the larger blossoms in a paler colour, I'm using a darker colour for my small blossoms, and or my small flowers really. And if I had it the other way around, if my large ones were more were darker in colour, then I would have used lighter ones for the smaller ones, which you've obviously, I think you've seen on the very first one that I showed you, the ready one. That's what I've done there, is I had the larger flowers in the darker colour and then use the lighter ones to complement them. So if I do that here, and then all we need to do is get some sequins to decorate. Now I've prepared some. And I'm just going to see what it will look like. Now that can go onto one of them. It's quite pretty actually, potentially. So if I do that for the other one, is that going to work? And pop that on top. It's just sometimes it's really very much a trial and error thing that you need to do. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. And then you place, I tend to place my my little embellishments down first if I can, before sticking them down. So there's something there. Let's just see what that does here. So I got these, and let's just see, have I got another pinky one that I can put somewhere for an added splash of whatever? Nope, that doesn't look right. So I think I'll leave it at that, otherwise I'm going to go into overkill mode here, unless this very light one. Yeah, sometimes if you've got some very light sequins, they don't jump out at you, but they just add something somewhere where you feel you need, if you feel you need something somewhere. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to stick them down. And what I tend to do is, when I use these type of embellishments, I place them and I leave them in place, and I just move them slightly out of the way, and then I stick my glue where I moved my dinky little bit from. And two more. That's one there, and another one here. And then I take my tweezers, go back over it, and place them. So as the glue dries clear, you won't notice it. If it pops through, actually with sequins I quite like it to pop through and around a bit at times, because it makes them more secure. Otherwise they can run the danger of coming off a little bit. So if I just put that on here, you won't really see that later. and here. And here. And I got the one at the top there. So just go over it and push them a bit further down so that they stick quite well. And next I got this big one, which goes on here, and I need another dab of glue. And that goes on here. And what you can do then, as you've probably seen, that there's like a little hole, and I've just moved the flowers on top into a position that would disguise it. So there you go. That's one side, and the other side I did in exactly the same way. And once you've finished, once you've done both sides, that's your storage ready. So all that's left to do is, which I'm going to do on this side now, because it all needs to dry anyway, is you run a little line of glue along here, and that prevents fraying in the future. There you go. And that's your storage. So hope you enjoyed watching, and excuse my ramblings, but it was a bit of a longer project. The covering itself does take quite a while. You could do something similar for a scrapbook page, scrapbook cover, or even actually if you wanted to make a larger card, that might be quite a nice type of layout too. And then you got like maybe at the bottom some sentiment, or even put your sentiment on the inside. So hope you enjoyed watching, and see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.